That is a track. Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. That is a track, my friends. Oh my God, it's so good. I know you guys always ask me about this. That is a track called Big City Soul, and the artist is Elliot Holmes. It's so good. Okay, welcome to Resistance Live for the 28th of August, 2024. We have such big news this morning that broke late yesterday afternoon. We're going to talk all about the superseding indictment of Donald Trump in the district court for the District of Columbia. Lots and lots of questions about that this morning on the Patreon feed. And the implications are not small, okay? First things first, I'm coming to you as always from occupied Muncie, Lenape, and Mohican land. Thanks to the original custodians of this land on which I sit. Today, I am wearing a white t-shirt with a brown sweater over top. I'm not going to need the sweater much longer because it's going to be 96 degrees here today. I'm a pink-skinned, green-eyed, dirty, blonde-haired woman. I have my thin gold hoops in. My hair is down. I'm in front of an oak cabinet and a plant and a stack of books. And these, by the way, are bookends. Stop asking me what it is. It just hasn't found a place on a bookshelf yet. And I'm in my office. All right. So late yesterday, we learned that Jack Smith had secured a superseding indictment of Donald Trump related to the January 6th insurrection and the fraudulent electors case. This is a very big deal, not only because he put this indictment in front of a whole new grand jury. So this is not the same grand jury that approved the initial indictment, but also because this pared down indictment keeps all four of the original crimes with which he was charged, but it eliminates anything that arguably could have fallen within the scope of presidential authority. Okay, so why does this all matter so much? Well, you will all recall that this is the case that went up on appeal all the way to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court ruled in that case that there was certain conduct falling within the scope of presidential authority for which Donald Trump would have immunity. Now, they didn't rule on what that specific conduct was. We were all waiting for this case to come back down to Judge Chutkan and potentially to have a mini trial between now and the election about what was and wasn't presidential authority actions. But we don't have to worry about that anymore because Jack Smith did the dirty work for us. And I will tell you that I think this is brilliant. Why? Well, there's a couple of reasons. Okay, the first thing is that by issuing a superseding indictment that has been approved by a whole new grand jury, first and foremost, there's no argument that there's a taint, meaning that the prior grand jury who initiated the initial indictment already saw all the evidence of everything he did within his presidential authority, and therefore there's something flawed about the indictment. No, whole brand new indictment, whole brand new grand jury. Okay. Very good to clean that up in that way. The other thing that it does is that it makes Judge Chutkan's job a lot easier because she doesn't now have to make an evidentiary ruling on a fact-by-fact basis about whether or not the conduct that was in the initial indictment is or is not within the scope of the Supreme Court's ruling. So essentially what he did was streamline the case. Now, I want to just make it really clear for everyone what a superseding indictment is, because there was a lot of confusion about it this morning on the Patreon feed and a lot of confusion about it last night on Threads. A superseding indictment is not a new indictment, okay? Again, those of you who have been here with me for a very long time already know this. Welcome to our new subscribers, but I want to make sure everyone is very, very, very clear on this, okay? A superseding indictment is like replacing an existing indictment with a slightly different indictment, okay? So one thing that can happen, and this has happened in the Fulton County case, is that a superseding indictment is issued that includes, let's say, hypothetically, new counts or includes new allegations, okay? It doesn't change it. It doesn't move it to a new judge. It doesn't mean the whole case starts over, okay? It just means that there are new facts and sometimes new crimes that are added to the indictment or removed from the indictment that previously existed before, okay? This is, in some sense, very standard procedure when there's new evidence uncovered or new developments in a case. So this is not a situation where, we're going to have a whole new judge or everything's going to have to start over. There's going to be like opportunities for multiple appeals up to the Supreme Court again. No. Okay. It doesn't mean he's not going to try multiple appeals, but this is not a situation in which you would ordinarily expect to see it. Okay. So The other advantage to this is that Jack Smith avoids something that was of a slight concern to some of us. I wasn't really all that worried about this, but I understand why other lawyers are raising this issue, okay? What it does is it removes from public view and the defense attorney's view the evidence that Jack Smith has against Donald Trump that we may not know about yet. So a mini trial that would have evaluated whether or not certain conduct fell within the scope of Donald Trump's presidential authority would have probably had to include testifying witnesses and maybe evidence that isn't in the public domain. Now Jack Smith gets to keep that all very close to the vest until the trial itself. Okay. And strategically, I see the smarts in that. All right. Now, for everybody who's asking about what happens next, there's a really big question mark about this because there was a deadline of Friday for the parties in that criminal trial to set a new trial schedule or to request a new trial schedule. They can each request different ones and file that with the judge, with Judge Chutkan. With this superseding indictment, there now may be a different determination by the judge of what comes next. Okay. Now, ordinarily, you have to be arraigned again when there's a superseding indictment. Here, there's some reporting that Jack Smith's team is not going to make Donald Trump show up again to be fingerprinted and arraigned and all that other stuff. Fine. The judge can still order him to appear. We'll have to see what happens there. I personally would love to see him show up in court again, just to remind the general public that, there's, again, whole looming criminal prosecutions. But regardless, the judge may decide now to take a different tact, to essentially set a trial date, who knows when, on the new indictment. And, one of the things that I want people to understand here is that because the indictment is streamlined, if, for instance, they move to dismiss now on the grounds of presidential immunity, that's something that the judge could just essentially dismiss out of hand. And so that everybody understands, the vast majority of what was removed from this indictment versus the first time and the superseding one is everything related to Donald Trump's communications with other government officials like Jeffrey Clark in the DOJ. Because arguably, communications between a president and an acting attorney general or someone who is senior in the DOJ would be considered within the purview of presidential authority and therefore potentially subject to immunity. All of that is gone. So the question now is what Judge Chutkan is going to do in terms of scheduling. And I personally think, I'm not going to make a wild prediction here because never say never, all right? But I'm just going to tell you that with a case this streamlined and how long this indictment has been looming, if I were Judge Chutkan, I would be looking to move very quickly to trial. And, with the understanding now that this indictment has been streamlined to the point that there is really no likelihood that there's going to be a viable presidential immunity argument, I would be looking to bump this to trial maybe by the end of the year. And again, I have to remind you all, this case has been looming for a very long time. There's been a lot of pretrial discovery already. She previously said she would give everybody 88 days from when she got the case back to when the case went to trial for prep. 88 days is a little less than 3 months, and we're at the end of August. Okay. So again, I want people to just remember that Jack Smith knows what he's doing. And I personally, when Jack Smith asked for that delay a couple of weeks ago, because, initially there was supposed to be a scheduling order filing by, I think it was the 6th of August. And Jack Smith asked for the 30th and everybody was like, why is he asking for more delay? What's wrong with Jack Smith? He was a terrible appointment. What is Merrick Garland doing? They were doing this. They were putting a whole new indictment to streamline the case in front of a brand new grand jury. Genius. Okay. And I said to you all at the time, we're going to know eventually why this delay has been requested. And I just want everybody to sit tight and see exactly what happens next, because he's not doing this for no good reason. Right. And he sure as heck was not. So we're going to have to see what Judge Chutkan does now. But I will tell you that my bet is that this all starts to move very, very quickly from here on out. And, the things that we would ordinarily expect in terms of pretrial procedure, we're already a big chunk of the way through that. There was already a lot of document discovery and sharing of, potential exculpatory information and the like. All of that was underway before this went up to the Supreme Court. So it's not like we're just getting ready for trial from scratch here. There's already a lot of procedural things that have been ticked. So hold on, okay? And again, I just have to say, timing is everything, and I'm not bothered by this timing one bit. Speaking of which, somebody said to me this morning on Patreon, and I don't know where this was coming from. I will just tell you all that when I see people bashing Merrick Garland right now on Threads or wherever, my initial reaction is like, what a waste of time, right? And the question on Patreon was like, I'm seeing people bash Merrick Garland. Okay. How am I supposed to respond to that? And essentially my answer is don't. First of all, I do think there's a lot of bot traffic out there right now that's trying to just undermine our institutions generally. That's, by the way, something that is known to be a part of foreign bot operations, is to undermine trust in government institutions. So first of all, you should be very suspicious of it. But second of all, like, who cares at this point, right? I mean, we've got an election to win. What good is it spending time online criticizing Merrick Garland, let alone when Jack Smith is like literally playing 4D chess? I have to tell you, when this dropped yesterday, I was like, this took not just some incredible analysis by his team of prosecutors, but also some real chutzpah to decide to put a new indictment in front of a whole new grand jury in the space of a month. That's ballsy. It takes courage. It's also really, really, really smart to streamline a case like this and make life easier for the judge so you can get to trial as quickly as possible. So please don't worry. Like, if you see people online who are criticizing Merrick Garland, you don't know who they are, you should block them. The other thing I'm just going to point out is that there is a lot of noticeable uptick in bot traffic right now on Threads that is showing up like people criticizing the Biden administration. It's not even people, randomly out of nowhere, first or second post is like, can we talk about how awful Merrick Garland is, right? Or can we talk about how awful, Kamala Harris is at the border? That's not real traffic. And not only should you not be taking the engagement bait, don't respond to it, but you also can just block it and hide it for all. Like, we really don't need to be engaged in that right now, let alone where we are. Okay. So this is very, very good news. And the other thing it did is, I have to remind you all that, we're watching Trump meltdown in real time. We spent a lot of time on this broadcast over the last couple of weeks talking about what narcissistic collapse looks like. And in case you were wondering what happens when the hits keep on coming like this, all you need to know is that Trump lost it last night on Truth Social, like absolutely lost it about this superseding indictment. Why? Because he understands the implications of it. His lawyers understand the implications of it. And it has changed the lay of the land for him in terms of this January 6th prosecution and what could happen in that case between now and the election or immediately thereafter. So very, very good stuff on every front. Good for us strategically, really bad for Donald Trump. And now we have to wait and see what Judge Chutkan decides to do next. Okay. Speaking of Donald Trump and malignant narcissism, we had a number of questions on the feed this morning about this event at Arlington National Cemetery. So if you happen to miss this, here's what happened. Donald Trump and his team tried to use Arlington National Cemetery for a photo op. And it was a photo op where essentially he was smiling and giving the thumbs up while standing on the graves of recently deceased soldiers with a number of other people who were smiling and giving the thumbs up. I don't know if you've ever been to Arlington. You all know I went to law school in Washington, D.C. I've been to Arlington quite a number of times. And it is one of the most sacred and, how shall I put it, serious places that I have ever been. You can't be in Arlington National Cemetery and not, just simply from the vista of it, have a very deep and profound understanding of the sacrifices that have been made in the name of this country. So this thing of let me use myself standing on the graves of recently fallen soldiers with a thumbs up and a smile for a photo op is offensive enough. But on top of it, Trump's team apparently got into a physical fight with a man who was trying to stop Trump from including the headstones of recently deceased soldiers in this photo op, like literally shoved him around. And now the Trump campaign is trying to say that that man was mentally ill. No, he was not. Okay. Now, in some sense, I want everybody to understand that this, somebody asked me this morning, is this a crime? No, it's not a crime. Okay. Is it wildly offensive? Yes. Is it the latest in a chain of thousands of wildly offensive things that Donald Trump has done? Yes. Is it yet another indication of how he feels about veterans in this country and people who have sacrificed their lives for the United States of America? Yes. It's disgusting and revolting. Are there likely to be any consequences to it beyond the consequences of, let's just say, veterans deciding not to vote for him? No. So, again, one of the reasons to point this out to others is to show the sheer level of disrespect that he has. But you know what I have to say? He's called our military vets suckers and losers. He's called, people who were POWs like John McCain losers for getting captured. Okay. He has done everything he can to roll back protections for veterans. He wouldn't sign into law the burn pits law. I mean, it should and he ordered the GOP essentially to not allow that to become law. There's so many indications of this that we don't just need one more. And so while it is horrifying and deeply and profoundly offensive, I was just sitting here this morning thinking about the families of those fallen soldiers and what it must feel like to them to have him standing on the graves of their lost children, smiling and giving the thumbs up, right? I also just have to say this, okay? And again, this is my mantra. It's going to be my mantra between now and November 5th. He is going to get worse. The things that he is going to do and say are going to become exponentially more crazy. Malignant narcissists in the midst of narcissistic collapse do not get better. There's only one way that they go, okay? And our job is to not allow ourselves to be derailed by the insanity, but to stay focused on getting out the vote, okay? Again, this is a moment to shut out the noise, use it as you need to in your conversations with your neighbors and your friends and your family and the people with whom you're door knocking. Use it for purposes of mobilizing people if this is an issue that they care about, okay? But don't let it derail your efforts. Don't let it send you into fight, flight, or freeze. Don't let it send you into a place of being so outraged that you don't feel like you can do anything. Stay focused on the prize, which is defeating him in November, all right? Really important. Okay, speaking of that, there was a Swifties for Kamala call last night. Many of you were on it. I know I was on it. It was hilarious and really fun. Elizabeth Warren was there. Senator Markey was there and did a whole speech in Taylor Swift lyrics that was hilarious. Carole King was there and sang Shake It Off on the call. More than $138,000 in donations to Harris Walz was raised on that call. But I'm going to point out something else because I know a lot of people think this is just a flaky effort. Swifties for Kamala is incredibly well organized. They have a political director. They have a training director. They have merch. They're doing a giveaway for tickets to the Taylor Swift concert in Toronto in November for checking your registration to vote through their site. They've got an enormous backing out there in terms of politicians and thought leaders. They're doing really good work. And these are people who really know what they're doing. I was incredibly impressed by this call, just incredibly, incredibly impressed by the call. And I want people to understand that wherever you get involved, even if it's something that's like Swifties for Harris, getting involved is non-negotiable now. And if for you, it's way more fun to get involved when you can make friendship bracelets. It's way more fun to get involved because you might get to go see the Taylor Swift concert in Toronto in November. It doesn't matter. Just get involved, okay? It's totally time to send the smallest man who ever lived home. Okay. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz have agreed to a sit-down interview with CNN. I talked yesterday about the fact that this is irrelevant, that, we don't need anything right now from legacy media in the context of Kamala Harris or Tim Walz. However, they have agreed to do this interview. And I'm just going to say one thing. I want everybody to be prepared that this interview is going to be spun as Kamala Harris is not ready for the job. Okay. Already this morning, there are people like, far right-wing trolls who are out there saying, why can't she give an interview alone? Why does she need Tim Walz to be there to prop her up? She's not prepared. Which, by the way, is like misogynoir writ large. Okay. Like, we all know what that looks like. But I just want people to understand that, like, the outcome of this is going to be that there is going to be, some form of Wait. I got to get the right person. Hold on. Bye. I want everybody to understand that there is going to be, I got the bell. I got her. I want everybody to understand that there is going to be an attempt to manipulate the outcome of this interview, regardless of what happens in the interview itself. And that is one of the reasons why I have thought, oh, I highlighted her. Sorry, guys, taking that off the screen. I want everybody to understand why it is that Harris Walz may have avoided this interview up until now. I mean, again, I talked about this yesterday, but also it's because it's kind of like a setup. And no matter what she does here, there is going to be some form of an outcome here that is going to result in somebody saying something negative. All right. So just get prepared. Just get prepared that, it's going to go that way, that there's going to be an attempt to do like a gotcha moment, that the questions are going to be like snarky. It's Dana Bash. I hope she does the right thing. But, we're going to end up with some questions that would never be asked of a male candidate and have never been asked of Donald Trump. And at least now, they can shut up about whether or not, like, where is Kamala? Why hasn't she given an interview? Well, that story's over now. They can go back to harassing Tim Walz about taking a picture with a dog that's not his own because he likes dogs. But all that said, just please do not expect that this is going to end up being some like slam dunk, because they don't want it to be a slam dunk. The mainstream media, the legacy media wants this to be a point of attack. They want drama, right? And they're going to try to generate it. Okay. So we'll see what happens with that. Okay. I was asked this morning to mention the Maryland Senate race. Please, I beg you, if you live in Maryland or you live in a neighboring state to Maryland and you know people who live there, you need to talk to people about how electing Larry Hogan could guarantee a nationwide abortion ban. We have to vote for Alsa Brooks. Like, she spoke at the national convention. She was brilliant. Okay. She is an incredibly qualified Black woman who belongs in the U.S. Senate. No questions asked. Okay. But she is tied right now with Larry Hogan, who previously was a very popular, albeit Republican, governor of the state of Maryland. And a lot of people currently don't know that Larry Hogan has been endorsed by Donald Trump and would vote without question for a nationwide abortion ban if he is elected. So please make sure that you are telling everybody that you know in Maryland to vote for Angela Alsa Brooks. Please, please. It's so critically important that this race takes center stage right now, and that you are doing the work of talking to your neighbors in Maryland about why she must be elected. I'm just going to encourage you, if you live in a blue state that is nearby, if you live in the District of Columbia and you can spare a weekend to go door knock for Angela Alsa Brooks, you should go do it. Okay. The fact that they are tied is a little bit shocking. There's really no reason in a blue state like Maryland why Larry Hogan should be trending this high at this moment. And the only explanation for it at this moment is that folks do not know that Larry Hogan has been endorsed by Donald Trump and has taken a very, very anti-abortion stance in recent years. Okay. Very, very important. Okay. Final thing I just wanted to mention today, because this has come up a bunch of times on the Patreon feed. Reminder, if you want to ask me questions for the broadcast, you can become a paid subscriber over at patreon.com/resistancelive. You get 3 hours before the broadcast every morning to ask me questions, and I will answer them in writing or on the air. Subscription started as little as $5 a month. That's less than 20 cents a broadcast. It's the steal of the century. Head on over there if you want to ask me questions. This morning, there were questions, and yesterday, there were questions on the feed about postcarding. Okay. And I want to make something really clear here and this is something that needs to be repeated. I know I've said it before on the broadcast, but it's something I really want everyone to hear very, very clearly. Okay. And it's this: postcards after early October are not the way to be spending your time. Why? Because Louis DeJoy is still the head of the United States Postal Service and cannot be removed absent a vote of the board of directors of the USPS. That is not going to happen before the election. And because the mail system is still so screwed up from the 2020 election that there is no guarantee that postcards that you mail after early to mid-October will actually reach their destination in time for the election itself. So someone asked this morning about what it is that we need to do here in this context. Okay, so you know that my favorite view for mobilization is face-to-face conversations, period. Why? Because the studies show that face-to-face conversations are the most likely thing to get people out of their homes and into the voting booth, okay? Not postcards, not text banking, like the number one thing that does it. And I'm not saying any of those efforts are lost or wasted, okay? But please hear me. The thing that is the most likely to motivate your friends, neighbors, family, community members to get to the ballot box is one-on-one, face-to-face conversations with people they know, okay? Now, if you're immune compromised, you're disabled, you can't leave your house, okay? You've got something else going on that limits the amount of time you can invest in doing things like door knocking and deep canvassing. Sure, go ahead and do your postcards, but I'm going to say something else. Please don't waste your energy and your time doing that after early to mid-October, okay? And if you're doing postcards because you enjoy it, because you do postcard parties with your friends and 50 people show up when you only invited 20, feel free to keep doing that. But just please remember this. Come early October, it's really got to be boots on the ground. It's got to be door knocking, text banking for candidates, making sure that you are having conversations with people, like actual conversations where you are getting feedback going back and forth, all right? To make sure that you are reaching people at talking points at a point where you could actually change minds or motivate people to get out the door, all right? Because the one thing that I will say here, and I love Mallory McMorrow, and I know there was a lot of debate on the White Women for Harris call about her comments. But I will tell you that generally speaking, I happen to agree with what she said on that call, which is that a postcard alone is not going to be enough to get someone out the door. It's got to be a postcard plus a conversation, a postcard plus text banking, a postcard plus phone banking, a postcard plus a conversation with their best friend, their neighbor, their daughter. Okay. And so I believe in everybody postcarding. And I also think that one of the things that's a little bit dangerous is that because postcarding doesn't require us to really get uncomfortable and have those difficult conversations that can change people's minds and create aha moments, some of us fall back on postcarding because we see it as low conflict, okay? I'm not talking about the people who can't do anything else. I'm talking about those of us who have an option about what to do with our time. And like I said, you want to do postcarding till the early October, fine. But after early October, you really got to pull on your big girl pants or big boy pants or big person pants and get out there and do those face-to-face conversations, okay? In your own community where you live, or if you're in a deep blue place, please consider getting on a bus and going to a neighboring red state or a neighboring district and doing canvassing on behalf of a candidate that really needs your support or on behalf of Harris Walz. It's so profoundly important. Okay, this is a moment for me to remind you that if you are one of those people who gets scared or nervous about these face-to-face conversations, we have a program starting 2 weeks from today that is going to train you on how to do this. And it is called Say It Now. Details below. And it will train you on political messaging for everyday conversations. And, you all know I've been an activist and an organizer since I was literally 15 years old. I also have been an executive coach. I've also been a trial lawyer. One of the things that, is really important about this moment is you've got to know how to talk to people where they're at. And you've got to know how to respond on the fly when someone comes at you with a disinformation talking point or some weird thing that they heard on CNN or some other place, something their high school best friend said on Facebook in a chat. You've got to know how to deal with this in real time. And it's a learned skill, but we need it now more than ever. So if you have concerns about this, or you've had your moment where you recognize, I'm not calling anybody out, but you recognize that you're postcarding because it's low stakes and it's not uncomfortable for you, and you recognize that there's more you can do if you know how to have the conversations properly, I hope you'll consider joining us. And I'll post a link up here also when the video is done where you can just click it directly to sign up. So it's GaiaLeadershipProject.com/say-it-now. You can get in. Please consider taking it if this is an issue that will help you, a skill set that will help you to get out there and talk to your friends and neighbors. And I'll just say one other thing about this, all right? If you do not know how to deep canvass, if you don't know how to have these active listening, deep questioning conversations with people about why they're feeling the way that they're feeling about the election, there will be elements of that in this course as well. Because we want all of you, by the time the course ends on October 4th, to have a full month to be out there talking to people about why it is that they've got to get out and vote. Like so important in this cycle. Okay. All right. That's it for today, my friends. Much love to all of you. Thank you all for all of your efforts. Big love to our Patreon subscribers. I love you guys. Thank you so much for being paid subscribers. A reminder, please subscribe, like, and share this broadcast. And you can also support it financially by clicking join here and becoming a YouTube channel member to get like little custom emojis and all sorts of other fun things that you can use in the chat. All right. I will be here live tomorrow. Quick programming note, there will be no broadcast on Monday for Labor Day, and there will be no Progressive Coffee Hour this weekend because I am going to take the weekend off to hang out with my children before they go back to school. They are so used to mom broadcasting on Saturdays and Sundays now that it's almost not like a no-brainer, but we've been through a lot this summer with our transcontinental move, and we're going to take Labor Day to like recalibrate and chill for 3 straight days, all right? And then get back to work. So much love to all of you. I'll see you all here live tomorrow. Thanks again for all of your support. Don't forget to drop me a comment below because it tells the algorithm that you're here and it helps to circulate this broadcast all over YouTube. And I will catch you all here live tomorrow at regular time. All right. Take care, everybody. Enjoy your Wednesday. Bye.